Good Sunday morning, Jacksonville. It's the Pain-Free Living Hour with Dr. Mitchell Yass. I'm Matt Hayes. He's Dr. Yass. He's going to give you the tools to live a pain-free life. There are 3 ways to get involved. Call us and talk to Dr. Yass, 904-641-1010. Text your question for Dr. Yass to the text line brought to you by our good friends at Lifetime Enclosures at 904-641-1010. You could also watch us on the live stream on the 1010XL YouTube channel. Now, over the weeks, we've addressed how the Yass method eliminates pain in your back, neck, hips, shoulders, knees, and feet. We talked about how the Yass method eliminates sciatica and migraines. Today, we're going to talk about weightlifting wrongs and rights. Now, before we go further, I want you to listen closely. We're not talking about bodybuilding. We're not talking about the meatheads. We love the meatheads. We're not talking about them. We're talking about strength training. So if you're 16 years old or you're 90, everyone can benefit from strengthening muscles. Because as we've shown over and over, the Yass method has found in 98% of the cases that the cause of pain is muscular. Now, strength training has multiple benefits, including but not limited to preventing and eliminating pain, weight loss, optimizing functional capacity, addressing mental health issues, and achieving longevity of life. Good Sunday morning to you, Dr. Yass. Let's get into strength training and the Yass method.
Good morning, Matt. Happy Sunday morning to you and everybody watching and listening. So, weightlifting is becoming more and more forefront because of the fact that, to be honest with you, the healthcare system's collapsing. And there's just simply less and less ability to access health care in terms of maintaining your overall health and achieving optimal longevity. So people are taking it upon themselves to attempt to do weightlifting. And as you said, we're not talking about bodybuilding. We're talking about developing strength for things like functionality, limiting pain, mental health is an important part. Studies have shown that strength training actually is better than antidepressants for minimal to moderate depression. I mean, this is real. This has all been proven. So there's a lot of people out there that would love to weightlift, but are simply afraid. And so I wanted to give everybody some generalized understanding of weightlifting, and if they feel this is beneficial, just because the Yass method focuses on the issue of pain, because it's the Yass method for pain-free movement, doesn't mean that there isn't also the element of movement or functionality. So if you need some lead-in to make you understand how to strength train properly, by all means, you can call and get an appointment for that. So,
Mitch, before we go further, you need to explain to everyone out there that it's strength training, and this is part of the Yass method process. This is how you strengthen muscles that are in deficit because, as your Yass method has proven in 98% of the cases, the cause of pain, the cause of your knee pain, your back pain, your hip pain, your foot pain is muscular. And the only way you get out of that pain is to strengthen your muscles.
So just to make it clear, my understanding of weightlifting actually came before I started doing the Yass method. I was that 98-pound weakling guy,
right,
and I had self-esteem issues. So I decided I was going to try to get stronger and make muscle mass to make myself feel better. It was at that time that I started to understand how to attach the laws of physics to weightlifting. And that gave me this method, this extremely unique method of understanding of how to isolate individual muscles, any muscle, so that you could get it strong, integrate that strength back into function, and be able to be fully functional. So this is not a curriculum-based understanding. This is personal. So as we've been doing every week, we've been kind of having some fun lead-in music. And so to lead into weightlifting, we're going to put on this music. So Rob, hit it.
A weakling weighing 98 pounds will get sand in his face when kicked to the ground. And soon in the gym, with a determined chin, the sweat from his pores as he works for his cause will make him glisten and gleam. And with massage and just a little bit of steam, he'll be pink and quite clean. He'll be a strong man. Oh, honey.
So that was from Rocky Horror Picture Show, and kind of
That was an interesting off-ramp.
it did relate. The 98-pound weakling was me, so that's why I felt that it kind of pertained to what we're trying to work on today. So anyway, we're going to run through a bunch of weightlifting wrongs and rights. So the first one is, for true weightlifting, you move one joint in one direction against resistance. This is maybe one of the least understood concepts. So when we talk about weightlifting, if you look at Arnold Schwarzenegger's Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding, you're going to see that you're moving multiple joints in multiple directions, and that is described as an exercise. For it to be a true weightlifting exercise, you could only move one joint in one direction. And by the way, each muscle, that's what its purpose is. So if we talk about the bicep brings the hand towards the shoulder, bending the elbow. The tricep brings the hand away from the shoulder and straightens the elbow. So if you want to strengthen those muscles, you can't be twisting, bending your shoulder, your elbow, your waist, and all this other stuff at one time. If you want to strengthen your bicep, you simply bend your elbow and bring your hand towards your shoulder against resistance. That has to be understood. The reason that's so important is because we don't want balance and stability to be a factor in strength training. So there was this whole movement of doing weightlifting on balls. You sat on a ball, and you were very unstable, and you're trying to do a bicep curl.
Yeah.
Well, the problem is that you just said you're working your core, but I'm trying to do bicep curls.
Right.
So you don't want to be working your core at the time of the bicep curl. I don't have a problem working your core, but you got to do it separately. So always realize you want to move one joint in one direction against resistance. That is the key to true strength training, weightlifting. Okay, number 2. Balance before strength. This is something I don't think anyone's understanding, and I just really need to get this out. Everybody loves to bench press. Everybody loves to bench press. Everybody loves to do leg press. Everybody loves to do knee extension. Everyone loves to do every exercise that relates to a muscle that's in front of your body. And before you know it, you're round-shouldered, your head forward, and you've got a big arch in your back, and you're having pain. And you say, I don't understand. I'm doing such a good job. I'm getting stronger and stronger and stronger in these muscles. How come I'm having pain? The reason is because for every muscle, there is an opposing muscle, like the bicep to the tricep, the chest to the upper back, the quad to the hamstring. If you're going to initiate a strength training program, the first thing you need to do is balance the two opposing muscles. When you balance the two opposing muscles, they sustain the lengths of both muscles, and they maintain the proper position of the joints that those muscles pass. So what you're first trying to do is normalize the musculoskeletal system in your initial phase of strength training. Get yourself balanced first. Make sure your muscles are at optimal length. Once you have optimal balance of muscle, front to side and top to bottom and front to back, you have the ability to then go on and do more extensive general conditioning or further strengthening. Okay. Progressive resistance causes growth. It is not the exercise. Another critical concept. People think, oh, I was told to weightlift, so I go to the gym and I move my arms and I maybe do circuit training and I do all these things, and they're doing it with like 2 pounds, 3 pounds, but they think that they're doing something for themselves because they're moving. The exercise is nothing more than a mechanism that allows an individual muscle to have resistance applied to it, right? So the exercise itself doesn't create strength. Causing the muscle to adapt to greater and greater resistances causes the muscle to get strong. So stop thinking that going to the gym and doing things haphazardly and not really having an intense amount of resistance to cause a change is actually going to do anything for you. It just won't. Okay? Here's another one. Full rest between sets. People are doing this weightlifting oftentimes because they think they're supposed to do it. The doctor told them to. Their friend told them to. There's a general premise. Oh, do strength training. It's good for you. And then they kind of rush through it. They do a set. 10 seconds later, they do another set. 10 seconds again, they do another set. And what they're not realizing is that a byproduct of muscular contraction is lactic acid. Lactic acid is what gives you that burning sensation in your muscle. Lactic acid impedes the ability of a muscle to contract. So after you've done a set of exercise, of resistance pushing, lactic acid has developed, and if you don't rest at least a minute to a minute and a half between sets, you haven't gotten rid of all that lactic acid. So you don't have all your muscle mass available. So there's that person who used 20 pounds to do a bicep curl. They did 10 reps. And on the second set, they only get 8. And they say, that's weird. Why did I get 8? Well, it's confusing because you had the same amount of muscle mass the second set. You had the same amount of resistance. So why didn't you get the 10 repetitions? Because you didn't wait long enough. So you didn't allow all the lactic acid to be depleted, and therefore you didn't have all your muscle mass. And I want it to be understood that if you don't get rid of all the lactic acid and you don't have your muscle mass, and you're still pushing the same resistance, what does that tell you? You're making yourself susceptible to straining because you just don't have as much muscle mass as you did the set before. So make sure you're waiting about a minute to a minute and a half between sets. Rest between bouts of exercise is just important as the bout of exercise. So there are these people, and maybe in certain professions, they tell you should be weightlifting 7 days a week or 5 days a week. So that is simply not true. As you're doing the exercise, you're causing micro tears. You're not making muscle grow during the bout of exercise. You're causing micro tears in it. The next 24 to 48 hours after that is when the inflammatory response occurs and muscle grows. So the general premise for the Yass method is you never work out more than 3 times a week. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. You always need to have that day's rest in between to allow the muscle to grow through the inflammatory response, and that's how you grow muscle. So I think what we'll do is we've got a break coming up, and then when we come back, we will continue with weightlifting wrongs and rights.
All right, let's get into that after the break. It's the Pain-Free Living Hour with Dr. Mitchell Yass on 1010XL. All right, we're back in the Pain-Free Living Hour. Now, we're going to delve deeper into weightlifting wrongs and rights. And again, before we go further, okay, remember, listen closely. We're not talking about bodybuilding. We're talking about strength training and how it pertains to the Yass method for pain elimination. Because as we all know, Dr. Yass has found in 98% of the pain cases, the cause is muscular deficits. And the only way to eliminate those muscular deficits is strength training. Doc, continue.
Yeah, let me just hit home a point where you talked about. So I have treated people from 5 to 102. 102. And I had that woman do strength training. So there's nothing impeding anybody from doing this. Unfortunately, just going back to the idea of treating people for pain, people might go to other practitioners, try some exercise, and end up in pain. And then they assume strength training bad because strength training hurt me. Well, you must understand that there has to be a really extreme understanding of how to do strength training. And that's all integrated into the Yass method. As I said, I did it for myself, and I put 60 pounds of muscle on, and I've treated close to 18,000 people using this. So please understand, using resistance bands or using exercise equipment doesn't mean that it is an equivalent of the Yass method. It's knowing how to do the exercises. So a classic example is in Matt's case. He had this weakness of this gluteus medius muscle. And There are people out there, and you'll see them in the gym, and they're putting some kind of resistance loop around their feet, and they're walking widely side to side. Well, that's not how you isolate and strengthen the gluteus medius muscle. There's a very specific concept to it, and I was able to do that with Matt, and sure enough, in 3 weeks, he was pain-free, and I think he would attest to that.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, it's, again, and I keep saying this and harping on this because I want everyone to know, no matter the age, no matter the gender, it doesn't matter. It's when we're talking about weight training, we're not specifically talking about dumbbells.
Right.
Resistance bands is strength training and weightlifting. That's what it is. Resistance bands help you. They fix the muscle deficits, which are the problem and the cause of your pain.
Absolutely. So going to the next one, it actually even will relate if we talk about this hip abduction exercise. Full stability of the body other than the joint moving to strengthen the muscle. So when we talk about doing hip abduction, you would agree that what I do is I always put a chair in front of you, and I tell you that you have to support half your body weight on your hands and half on the leg that's standing while you're moving the leg to strengthen the moving gluteus medius muscle.
Right.
Right. So the reason for that is that if you're trying to do any activity in a gravitational environment, there's a balance and stability component, sustaining yourself, balancing yourself, and then there is the moving of the resistance. The Yass method promotes the idea we want to eliminate all energy expenditure from balance and stability and put all the energy towards the moving of the resistance because that allows that muscle to grow fastest and allows it to integrate back into function fastest and allows you to be pain-free and fully functional the fastest.
It also isolates the area that needs to be isolated to eliminate your pain. Remember, the pain is in your muscle deficit. So when you strengthen, you eliminate the deficit, you eliminate your pain.
Right. So if we're talking about any upper body exercise, if you come to my facility and you use the Yass method, you're sitting. Let's be very clear. You are sitting for every upper body exercise. If you're doing lower body, the vast majority, hamstring curl, strengthening the hamstring, knee extension, strengthening the quad. You're sitting. You're sitting. The goal is to make you fully stable other than the joint that is moving and pushing the resistance with the muscle that is moving that joint. This is very, very important to understand. This is one that constantly comes up, and I want to kind of close the door on it because there's just a complete lack of understanding of this. Flexibility. Everybody's talking about flexibility. A lot of people want to talk about flexibility programs and just relating to that, not even in terms of strengthening. This is important. Stretching is bad. Balance of muscle is good. So let me explain what that means. Flexibility is not an entity onto itself. The ability of a muscle to go through its range of motion is not innate. It's not on its own. It has to do with the fact that every muscle has an opposing muscle. So the quad has the hamstring. Now, let's say that your quad is stronger than your hamstring. If that happens, there's no opposing tone to the quad because the hamstring isn't as strong. The quad straightens the knee. The hamstring bends the knee. Right. So if the hamstring isn't strong enough, then the quad is going to want to have a tendency to want to straighten the knee. Well, if you're straightening the knee, what are you doing? You're shortening your quad. So people end up having this, and they're told, stretch your quad. It's going to make your knee pain go away or your back pain. Well, tomorrow you're going to wake up, and you're going to realize you're going to have to stretch again. And then the next day, stretch again. And you're going to see you're not getting anywhere. And the reason is because the flexibility deficit is not an entity onto itself. It's happening because your hamstring doesn't have as much force output because it's not as strong as the quad. So if you want to fix flexibility issue of the quad, you got to strengthen the hamstring. It's a force deficit. Flexibility problems result from force deficits. Stretching won't correct the problem. That's a gigantic thing that people have to get because most people have never even heard this. But it's critical to understand. If you have a deficit in flexibility, you're going to have to figure out where the imbalance is between two opposing muscles and strengthen the weakened muscle. I promise you, when you get balance of strength, you will never have a flexibility deficit again.
And that's where the Yass method comes into play.
Exactly.
Because it's not just something as simple as, okay, we'll just do this. You specifically tell those in pain that come to you, Here's what you need to do. This is the exercise you need to do. This is what you're strengthening. This is what you're going to do wrong if you got somebody out there just telling you, oh, go do this.
Right. So let's say, for instance, you can't weight bear. You can't go upstairs. You can't walk. You can't kneel because you have pain around your kneecap. And it's because your quad is too strong compared to your hamstring. And so the quad is shortened.
Wait, stop. Go back real quick and say that again. Because you have pain in your knee doesn't mean it's structural.
Correct. And if the pain's around the kneecap, the highest probability is that your quad is too strong, the front thigh muscle is too strong for the back thigh muscle, and it has shortened. Since it's attached to the kneecap, it's pulling excessively up on it.
Which is resulting in
pain at the knee and dysfunction.
There you go.
So you could go to other facilities and they could talk about stretching, or they'll put you on a bicycle or a treadmill or something of that nature. I'm probably going to massage out that quad, do a stretch, elongate it. You're going to stand up. You're going to see a sudden improvement in your functionality and decrease in pain. And guess what we're going to do then? We're going to strengthen your hamstring.
With weight training.
With strength training.
Right.
And it might be equipment. It might be a band. It's all dependent on you and what you have available, because the Yass method, by the way, also promotes the idea you have to fix your strength deficit. Nobody else can fix that. I'm a guider, but I don't fix anybody.
You facilitate you do.
That's a good word.
All right?
I facilitate.
Exactly. You give your method is your knowledge.
Correct.
So you facilitate your knowledge, and at the end of the day, if you want to get better out there, people, it's on you.
Correct.
It is literally on you. No pills, no surgery, no needles. It is you with weight training, strength training, dumbbells, bands, whatever you got to do.
And it's important to understand that after that first session, I'm going to give you a set of videos to go home with. And we're going to make sure you understand that. So you're going to do your exercise 3 times a week on your own. We might have 1 or 2 follow-ups after that. But I have transferred the understanding of how to strengthen the appropriate muscles to give you pain-free full function. And I'm allowing you to take responsibility for it and to resolve it on your own.
And not only that, I want to make this point. It's the idea that you are doing it on your own, and this is coming from firsthand knowledge. It's liberating because you are the one that are fixing you, not some doctor telling you, oh, you might need surgery. Well, let's just try a needle. Maybe that'll work. Or you know what? Yeah, you're in pain. How about a couple pills? That'll work. No, you are the one fixing you with strength training. That's the best part. It is liberating.
So just to understand how liberating it is, I just started this lady. She had pain for 3 years in her knee, and she had been given cortisone shots and PRP, which we could have an entire show on PRP and stem cells and all that other stuff. But and so she was decaying, and she was realizing her life was simply moving away from her. So I did exactly what I talked about, evaluated her, massaged and stretched a couple of muscles. She stood up and instantly started crying. And it took her like 15 minutes to stop crying. And everybody has to understand what happened at that moment was a sudden influx of emotion from the understanding for the first time. She now knows. She knows what the cause of that pain was and that dysfunction, and now knows it's going to end in the next couple of weeks. That emotional response was so overwhelming because it happened so suddenly. She went from kind of hobbling in to walking full.
Explain how she was walking in, Mitchell.
She's limping. She can't put all her weight. She's falling onto the opposite side from where her pain is.
Her knee was collapsing, correct?
Her knee was slightly collapsing, and when she would put the weight on, she was off that foot very quickly and also was full. You could literally hear the pounding of her opposite foot as it hit because she was falling onto the other leg. So she literally, after the treatment alone, without even the exercise first, she was able to stand up, and you could just hear that falling disappeared. And the pain around her knee was gone. So she was suddenly walking pretty much pain-free, and that was just after 3 years and a sense that nobody really understands what was happening. It was very emotional, very powerful.
Again, in the massage you're talking about, this is another area. This is part of the Yass method. Dr. Yass knows what muscle needs to be massaged to start the process. It's not just randomly massaging your entire leg.
Right. Through the evaluation, I determine what is the cause of. So let's say you're having pain at your knee. The cause of the pain at the knee might not be for 99.99% of cases. I've shown the cause of the pain is not where the pain is being experienced versus the medical system that does, you have knee pain, they're going to do an MRI at your knee. You have pain at your shoulder, you're going to do an MRI at your shoulder. It's just not the way function occurs in the body. So I evaluate you, establish where the deficit is. That's usually away from where the cause of pain is, and I'll start massaging. And when I massaged that muscle, no one knew that pain was there. So in this woman's case, she had a pain at the glute med. When I did it, she kind of jumped a little, and she was stunned to see she had pain there. But I knew that was the muscle causing it, so I knew that that was the strained muscle. So then when I did that and stretched her, and it showed that the pain at the knee went away, there's where your proof of causation is.
And you could see, like, in her face immediately, she knew it was not only better, but, oh, my God, this might be the path.
She started crying instantly.
Yeah.
She took literally her first step on that foot, and she just started crying. It was, for me, you must understand, this is, I mean, I think I've been given this understanding because nobody else knows it. And so it's so personal with me. When you see that transition, that sudden recognition, holy cow, this thing's going to end now, it's about as comforting to me. It's the payment that I get. It's not the money. It's that. It's giving that to people.
I can tell you this. When I got the massage and I hadn't done any strength training yet, I got off the table and looked at him and said, "Are you kidding me? Is this a joke?" Because I literally went from pain of like 9 to pain of about 3. And I looked at him like, this is like a trick. You did a trick or something. But it is no trick. It's the Yass method. Call Dr. Yass, 904-906-YASS, and set up an appointment or go online, livewithoutpains.com. That's livewithoutpains, plural.com. You can set up an appointment. You can go to the office over off Phillips Highway, or you can do a Zoom session. So you don't have to be in Jacksonville. You could be anywhere in the United States. You could be in India. You could be in Canada. You could be anywhere. It's a Zoom session. Give them a call. All right, we need to go to a break. We'll come back, and we'll get deeper into weightlifting rights and wrongs with the Yass method. It's Pain-Free Living Hour with Dr. Mitchell Yass on 1010XL. All right, we're back on the Pain-Free Living Hour with Dr. Mitchell Yass. If you want to get in touch with Dr. Yass today, give us a call, 904-641-1010. You want to talk about weightlifting, strength training with the Yass method. You can also text us to the same number. And again, Dr. Yass, set up an appointment, 904-906-YASS, and online at livewithoutpains. That's plural, livewithoutpains.com. Dr. Yass, let's continue with weightlifting wrongs and rights.
Sounds good. Okay, so here's one cardiologist is going to have a heart attack when I say this. Everybody is told that the best thing they could do for themselves is walking. If you have only enough time, you should do walking. Well, my question to you is, how does walking affect the upper body? Are you somehow strengthening your shoulders?
I don't believe it does.
That's correct. It doesn't. So I want people to understand, and this is a big one, weightlifting is cardiovascular. Okay? So here's what you have to understand. You're doing weightlifting. You're causing muscles to adapt to resistance, and lactic acid builds up. Lactic acid can turn the blood pH negative, acidic. And so as a result of that, the body can't allow that to happen. So it has to pump blood to the muscle to get rid of the lactic acid, and then it's brought back to the liver. That need to pump blood causes the heart to have to work harder. And the cardiovascular system, the arteries and veins have to work harder. So please understand, you are getting 2 for the price of 1, for God's sakes. Do weightlifting. Weightlifting affects, if you want to work your legs, work your legs. If you want to work your arms, your upper body, work your upper body. But do not believe that if there is a choice between walking and strength training, that walking is better. It simply is not. Okay, going back to relevance of the Yass method in weightlifting, posture tells the tale of strength and balance. So one of the things that, in a case like Matt's, he had this Achilles tendonitis issue on that right side. One of the things that I noticed when he came in was that his left hip was about 2 inches higher than his right hip. And what that showed was that representation of your hip heights not being equal tells you one of your glute meds are weak. So that postural deficit was a guide to me to then check the strength of his glute meds. You have the person whose shoulder is higher on one side than the other, and they're having pain on that side. That is a recognition that the lower trapezius muscle, which pulls the shoulder down and stabilize the shoulder blade is weak. So that variation in posture helps guide me to understand which muscles are not working. So as a general rule, proper posture represents strength and balance. Improper posture represents weakness or imbalance. So understand posture is a major factor. Going on to a different area, here's one very simple. Barbell good, barbell bad, dumbbell good. The reason I talk about this is if you're going to do some sort of weightlifting for whatever reason and you're using a barbell, let's say to do bench press or military press, the natural movement of the shoulder is rotational. It's rotational. If you're grabbing a barbell and your hands are connected, it literally impedes that natural rotational motion. And as a result, the bone mechanics in the shoulder are going to change. And there's almost nobody on this planet who hasn't used enough weight with military press or bench press who hasn't ended up with biceps tendonitis, and they don't know why. So please use dumbbells. If you come to my facility, you'll say I have dumbbells, just to fully appreciate this, from 3 to 120 pounds. And Matt has seen that, and Matt's working his way up, and it's all going well, and it's all good. So let's make sure we use dumbbells. It allows the natural rotation of motion of joints to work. Okay, now we're going to get into a real specific one, and that's lat pull down. A lot of people use this to strengthen the shoulder and the upper back. The key with the lat pull down is people are always told, wide grip, wide back. That's not true. That's not true. This is, most people are talking, when they talk about lat pull down, this pulling down of the bar, that it should have a wide grip. That's not true. You want to have a grip where your forearms are perpendicular to the ground. When you're pulling down, your elbow is directly under your hand, and that is because the bar is trying to pull you up. And for you to maximize strength, you need to be pulling 180 degrees the opposite way, which is pulling down. So when doing a lat pull down, forearms perpendicular to the ground, and you're pulling behind your head. You are not doing it in front. I'm not sure I see anybody in a gym or anyone attempting to strengthen who pulls for a lat pull down behind the neck. And that is because this is the way it's shown, especially on the pictures of the machines. People love to look at those pictures and think that they're factual. They're not.
Okay, so explain how a lat pull down, first off, how you can do it with resistance bands. That's number one. And number two, how that is used, like in a specific pain, what you use lat pull downs for to strengthen a muscle.
So if you to use it in a band, if you use a resistance band, we're going to take the band, we're going to put a couple of knots in the center of it, and we're going to put that over the door. Then you're going to have the back of your chair to the door, so you're going to face away from the door. Then you're going to grab the two handles, and the same concept. You're looking forward, and you're just driving your elbows straight down with forearms perpendicular, so that's how you can replicate the machine with a resistance band. In terms of for functionality, the lat has a lesser effect on function than the muscles between the shoulder blades, which is the mid-trap rhomboids, and I'm going to get into that. But it's more of an aesthetic type thing, but it's just a very, very common exercise that's used in the gym, and I just wanted to try to clarify that because I hate to tell you, a lot of people are hurting themselves doing that. And the Yass method is not just there to address pain for people who have it. If I can prevent people from having it, I'm all the happier. Okay? So, the lat pull down with neutral bar. Now, this is different. So, with the lat pull down, you're pulling straight down. This is the exercise nobody understands. Everyone who thinks they understand this, they don't. This is to work the mid-trap rhomboids, the muscles between the shoulder blades. And these muscles, besides the lower trap, are the two most important muscles in the entire upper body grouping. The mid-trap rhomboids between the shoulder blades and the lower trap.
Why are they the most important?
And this is the answer. Because they anchor the shoulder blade to the rib cage in the optimal position to allow the muscles that attach from the arm to the shoulder blade to create optimal shoulder function.
So this is where we get into the idea of the frozen shoulder.
Yes.
So explain that.
Yeah. So a lot of people will be given the diagnosis frozen shoulder. And that's because when they try to raise their arm, they have pain. The key to understanding frozen shoulder means that there's this capsule that surrounds your shoulder and somehow you've developed adhesions. To know whether that's the cause, You're going to try to raise your arm. You're going to reach a point where you can't. Then if you come to me, I'm going to try to raise your arm. And if you can't raise your arm even a quarter of an inch higher, that would indicate you probably have a structural abnormality, and frozen shoulder might be the case. Well, in every case I've ever done that, I was able to move the arm further. So passive range of motion, me moving it more than the person could move it, proved it wasn't structural.
And the pain was?
Due to a mechanical deficit of how the joint was working due to muscular deficit.
Yes.
And that's where we go on and we do our strengthening. And by the way, I want this made very clear. I've been doing this for 30 years. I've treated 18,000 people. I'm telling you, I want this to be made really clear. I have never had a single person present with me who was diagnosed with frozen shoulder having the actual physical presentation of frozen shoulder.
Never.
Never. Not once. Every single time it was muscular, and I was able to get them pain-free and fully functional. It's a really popular diagnosis. I'm telling you now, there has to be a specific physical presentation. If you don't have that, you don't have frozen shoulder. So going back to the lat pull down with neutral bar, the key here is that when you're doing that exercise, you want to be pulling back behind you, not down, but behind you with your elbows at shoulder height. And most people don't understand that. They think they're just using a different handle. Right. And as a result of that, you still do the same exercise, but it's different. It's not. To do the lat pull down with neutral bar, to get those mid-trap rhomboids, you have to be pulling behind you. And you only have to come back as far as the shoulders. You don't have to get too far behind.
How do you do that with bands?
Same situation. Take a knot, put it in the middle of the band, put it over the door. You'll have two handles. You'll be sitting in the chair, leaning back, and as you pull back, you'll be pulling back with your elbows at shoulder height until they reach the line of your shoulders and your stop. It exactly replicates what you would do on the machine.
All right, real quick. In 30 years, someone coming up to you and saying they have been diagnosed with frozen shoulder, you've never, ever, ever seen it and said, yes, you have frozen shoulder.
I swear to God, based on the physical presentation of the symptoms, they didn't have it. I've never had anybody stop when I tried to move them at exactly the same spot where they stopped, which tells you it can't be structural. And the proof in the pudding was, within a couple of weeks, every one of those person was pain-free and fully functional through the strength training.
And how many of these people were told by their physician that they're going to need surgery?
Well, obviously a very high percentage of them.
Okay. That's all. That's all I wanted to say. All right, we're going to go to a break. We're going to come back with Weightlifting Rights and Wrongs. It's the Pain-Free Living Hour with Dr. Mitchell Yass on 1010XL. All right, we're back in the Pain-Free Living Hour with Dr. Mitchell Yass. We got a couple minutes to go, Doc, and I want to go over the entire process again of contacting Dr. Yass, going through the method, and eliminating your pain. You call Dr. Yass at 904-906-YASS. He picks up the phone, he says, hey, and you talk for a little bit. Or you go online at livewithoutpains.com, and you just schedule an appointment. If you're on the phone and you're talking to him, he's going to say, what do you have? What's your problem? And then you'll talk together, and he'll say, all right, I can fit you in right here. If you're online, you just go in there and say, all right, my name's Rob. I'm clicking in. Boom, done. There's my appointment. Now, Doc, once the patients get to your office or once you get them on the Zoom, again, you can do this via Zoom, take it from there. What happens?
So we always start with a discussion of the history of the pain. And to make this super clear, I follow the Hippocratic method. Hippocrates himself described the idea that the only way to establish the cause of any symptom is to do a full history and a full physical evaluation. So we're going to try to understand from you what might be the cause by listening to your history. Then that's going to guide me into understanding what types of physical type of tests you might do. You might have to do a single leg stand, a squat. I might look at you posturally. You might have to bend. You might have to go through range of motion. And as we go through that process, we'll determine, very simple, first question, is the cause muscular or structural? Well, as Matt has said, and I continue to promote, in more than 98% of your cases, it's muscular, even when a structural abnormality is identified on MRI or X-ray. Those are just independent variables. The cause is muscular. So then we're going to do some massage and stretching to address the muscle that has knotted due to straining, and we're going to try to get it back to a more optimal length. So instantly, can create more force. And that's that magic thing.
Instantly,
Instantly.
you will feel remarkably better.
It's the same thing that Matt said. He thought that I had hypnotized him or something that. Literally, I just massaged his glute med, stretched it, he stood up, and he was able to weight bear on his left leg, which he hadn't been doing because the muscle had more length and more force capacity. So that's where we do the bit of treatment, and then we're going to go on. We're going to do an exercise routine, strengthening only the muscles pertaining to your deficit. Not everybody's deficit, just yours. And typically that's no more than 3 to 4 exercises, 3 to 4 muscles. So then we go through that. At the end of it, we're going to give you some videos. Make sure you understand how to do what you need to do, and you're going to be able to resolve your pain and achieve full function.
Remember, you resolve your pain. You're not listening to a doctor telling you got to have surgery, you got to have needles, you got to have pills. You resolve your pain with strength training, bands or weights. Woo! What a show. All right. Stop by next week. We'll be back next week for another hour of the Pain-Free Living Show with Dr. Mitchell Yass. Have a great Sunday, everybody.